The first human ship arrived at the edge of the common spiral without announcing itself. It did not use the standard beacon tones or color lights that every known spacefaring species agreed upon long ago. Instead, it drifted slowly, its engines quiet, its surface plain, and almost unfinished. To the watchers at the listening array, the ship looked less like a war vessel or a trader, and more like a question left floating in the dark. Observer Tackrell adjusted the sensors again. Certain something had gone wrong. No energy spikes. No weapon signatures. No biological threat markers, Tackrell said, his voice a soft vibration through the chamber. It is empty of intent. That made no sense. Every ship ever recorded carried intent. Fear, hunger, conquest, curiosity, something always leaked through. Even automated probes showed traces of purpose in their movement. This ship did not. It simply existed, moving forward with patient confidence, like it knew it would be noticed eventually. The council was alerted within minutes. The human ship stopped just beyond the official border and waited. Inside the council hall, delegates from over 40 species gathered, their bodies filling the vast space with colors, sounds, and scents. Screens showed the strange vessel from every angle. It was long and uneven, covered in external frameworks that seemed unnecessary by known engineering standards. Some parts looked old, others new, as if the ship had been rebuilt many times without concern for beauty. Ambassador Luro of the Vesh spoke first. "Is this the species called human?" "Yes," replied Archivist Sanmore. "Records say they come from a mid-sized yellow star system. High-gravity world. Unstable climate. Short average lifespan." "Then why?" Luro asked. "Does their ship look like it expects to be here for a very long time?" That question settled heavily over the room. A transmission arrived soon after. It was not compressed or layered like most advanced signals. It was simple, almost crude. "This is the exploration vessel Wayfarer. We come in peace. We request permission to speak." No threats. No demands. No carefully coded power display. Just words. Permission was granted. The main screen shifted, showing a single human standing in a plain room. He wore simple clothing, no visible symbols of rank or authority. His face was lined, his hair gray at the edges, and his posture relaxed but alert. "My name is Elias Monroe," he said. "I speak for the crew." The council studied him carefully. His body was fragile by most standards. No armor. No visible weapons. No defensive posture. And yet, his eyes were calm in a way that unsettled several observers. "Why did you not follow first contact protocol?" asked Council Speaker Ramin. Elias smiled slightly. "Because your protocol assumes fear or dominance. We wanted to arrive without either." That answer caused a ripple of quiet reaction. The speaker paused. "That is unusual." "We get that a lot," Elias replied. "The council asked many questions. About Earth, about human government, about technology and culture," Elias answered openly. He admitted limits. He admitted mistakes. He admitted that humans did not know everything and did not pretend to, that honesty confused the council more than lies ever could. Finally, one question slipped out that was not part of the prepared list. "If humans are not the strongest, fastest, or longest-lived species," Ramin asked, "why explore so far beyond your space?" He looked away from the camera, as if choosing his words with care. "Because staying still never kept us safe," he said. "And because we are very good at learning." Permission was granted for a small delegation to board the human ship. What they found only deepened the mystery. The Wayfarer was not elegant. Its halls were narrow, its walls marked with repairs. Some sections used different materials entirely, clearly added later. Nothing matched perfectly, yet everything worked. They moved with easy confidence, not because they were powerful, but because they trusted their environment completely. They touched walls, leaned on railings, joked quietly while working. One of the delegates, Scholar Ix of the Keth, noticed something strange. The humans constantly adjusted their surroundings. A chair would be moved slightly, a light repositioned, a tool modified with an extra grip or mark. It was subtle, but constant.
"Why do you alter everything?"
Ixact, the human engineer. The engineer laughed softly. "Because nothing is perfect the first time." "But it functions," Ix replied. "Efficiency is within acceptable range." "Sure," the human said, "but it could be better. Or safer. Or easier for the next person." That idea spread unease among the observers. Most species built things to last unchanged for centuries. Humans built things expecting them to change. In the observation deck, Elias spoke privately with Speaker Ramin. "You are afraid," Ramin said plainly. Elias nodded. "Of course. First contact always matters." "Not fear of us," Ramin clarified. "Fear of yourselves." Elias considered that. "We've made mistakes before. Big ones. We learn the hard way what happens when curiosity moves faster than responsibility. And yet you came anyway." "Yes," Elias said. "Because we also learned something else?" "What?" "That avoiding the unknown doesn't make it less dangerous. It just makes us unprepared when it finds us." The council delegation returned with conflicting reports. Humans were weak individually, but stubborn as a group. Their technology was inefficient, but adaptable. Their culture lacked unity, but produced endless solutions. They did not dominate environments. They negotiated with them. No single trait made humans impressive. But taken together, they were unsettling. That night cycle, the council received another message from the Wayfarer. Elias stood on screen again. "We don't want special status," he said. "We don't want control or influence. We just want a seat at the table and a chance to learn from you. And maybe, one day, help." "Help with what?" Ramin asked. Elias smiled, but there was something serious behind it. "With problems you haven't seen yet." The council ended the session without response. In the silence that followed, Archivist Senmore reviewed ancient data patterns, long-range cosmic records, disappearances, civilizations that had vanished without explanation. A quiet pattern emerged. Systems failed not from war, but from slow, complex problems no single species could adapt to alone. Senmore looked again at the image of the human ship. Patched together, changed over time, still moving forward. For the first time in many cycles, the archivist felt something close to hope and fear. Because if humans were right, if the greatest threats were not things you could fight, then a species built to endure, adapt, and keep going no matter how broken things became might be exactly what the galaxy needed. Or exactly what would change it forever. Part 1 ends here. If you want, say Part 2, and I'll continue the story in the same style and tone. The council did not sleep after the humans spoke. Across the common spiral, data flowed through silent channels as analysts, historians, and thinkers tried to understand what had just arrived. Humans had not threatened, demanded, or impressed in the usual ways. That alone made them dangerous in a way no weapon ever could. Observer Tekrell returned to the listening array and focused on the human ship again. The Wayfarer remained exactly where it had been. Engines low, systems steady. It did not move closer. It did not retreat. It waited. Waiting, Tekrell thought, was a sign of confidence. Inside the council hall, archivists and more presented his findings. Images of lost systems appeared on the large, curved display. Stars still burned where civilizations once lived, but no signals came from them anymore. "These collapses," Senmore said, "were not sudden. No evidence of invasion. No planetary destruction. They failed, slowly." "Environmental decay?" asked Ambassador Leroux. "In some cases," Senmore replied. "In others, social fracture, resource imbalance, technological dependency without understanding." The speaker turned to the image of the human ship. "And you believe humans are relevant to this?" "I believe," Senmore said carefully, "that they may be resistant to such failures. That caused unrest."
"Humans are fragile," said a delegate from the Elth Combine.
"Their biology is unstable, their emotions uncontrolled." "Yes," Senmore agreed. "And yet they survive on a world that should have broken them." "High gravity, rapid climate shifts, constant natural disasters. They did not master their planet." "They adapted to it." The council grew quiet. Permission was granted for extended observation of the Wayfarer. Human crew activity was monitored openly. The humans did not object. In fact, they shared internal data freely, sometimes before it was requested. That behavior confused everyone. Most species guarded information like territory. Humans treated it like a tool meant to be used. On board the Wayfarer, the crew continued their routines. Repairs were ongoing, even in places that were not damaged. Systems were tested, adjusted, and tested again. Commander Elias Munro walked through the engineering bay, watching two technicians argue quietly over a power routing change.
"It already works," one said.
"Yeah," the other replied. "But if this relay fails, the backup kicks in faster this way. By how much? Not much, but enough." Elias smiled and moved on. In the observation lounge, a small group of council representatives gathered with Human Cultural Officer Maya Chen. She had been chosen carefully for this role. Calm, patient, and deeply curious about others. Scholar Ix floated closer to her, his form shifting colors slowly. "Your people modify even your habits," he said, "not only your tools." Maya nodded. "We have to. What works for one situation usually fails in another. That suggests instability." "It suggests learning," Maya replied. Ix paused. "Your records show many internal conflicts." "Yes," Maya said simply. "Yet you persist." "Yes. Why?" Maya thought for a moment. "Because we don't see failure as an ending. Just feedback." That concept was recorded and flagged for further study. Meanwhile, deeper scans of the human ship revealed something unusual. The Wayfarer carried no advanced weapons. Defensive systems were present but minimal. Instead, there was an excessive amount of storage space. "What do humans need so much capacity for?" asked Observer Tekrell. Senmore examined the data, tools, raw materials. "Repair units, redundant systems." "Redundant beyond necessity," Tekrell said. "Yes," Senmore agreed. "They plan for things to break." That idea unsettled many. During the next council session, the speaker requested another conversation with Elias. "You claim no desire for influence," the speaker said. "Yet your presence already alters our discussions." Elias nodded. "That's fair. Then answer this," the speaker continued. "What do humans want from the galaxy?" Elias did not hesitate this time. "To understand it before it breaks us." The speaker tilted slightly.
"You assume it will?" Elias's expression was calm, but serious. Everything breaks eventually.
The question is whether you know how to fix it when it does. That answer was archived under Human Philosophy Concerning Entropy. Soon after, an unexpected event occurred. A minor trade station on the edge of the common spiral experienced a cascading systems failure. Power fluctuations spread through life support, navigation, and communications. It was not dangerous yet, but it would be if left unchecked. Automated systems failed to correct the issue. Local engineers followed protocol, but each fix caused another problem elsewhere. The council observed, concerned, but hesitant to intervene directly. Then a message arrived from the Wayfarer. "We're detecting instability patterns that look familiar," Elias said. "Permission to assist?" The council debated briefly. This was not a crisis, but it was an opportunity to test human claims. Permission was granted. The Wayfarer did not dock with the station. Instead, humans transmitted a series of models, simulations, and simple step-by-step suggestions. They did not say, "Do this." They said, "Try this, and see what happens." Station engineers followed the guidance. When one solution failed, the humans adjusted. When another caused strain elsewhere, they rolled it back and tried again. There was no panic, no blame. Within a short time, the cascade stabilized. The station returned to normal operations. "What did they do differently?" asked Ambassador Leroux. "They treated the system like a living thing," Senmore said slowly. "Not something to control, but something to listen to." That phrase spread quickly through council records. Later, in private, Maya spoke with Elias. "They're watching us very closely now," she said. "Good," Elias replied. "You don't seem worried."
I am, he said. But worry doesn't help unless you use it.
Maya smiled faintly.
That's very human. The council met again, this time with fewer arguments. Evidence was accumulating.
Humans were not powerful in the traditional sense, but they filled gaps no other species addressed. They noticed slow failures. They prepared for mistakes. They shared knowledge without needing dominance. And most importantly, they were comfortable with uncertainty. Archivist Senmore added a new entry to the records that cycle. Humans may not prevent collapse, but they may outlast it, and teach others how to do the same. At the edge of council space, long-range sensors detected something faint and ancient shifting between stars. The signal was weak, irregular, and old. No alarms were raised yet, but the humans noticed it first. Elias stood on the bridge, staring at the data. "Not yet," he murmured, "but soon." The Wayfarer adjusted its systems quietly, preparing for something it did not yet name. And far beyond the Council's awareness, a problem that could not be fought, only endured, continued to move closer. The signal did not announce itself. It did not arrive with force or speed. It crept into sensor readings as background noise, the kind most systems filtered out automatically. A small fluctuation here, a missing echo there. Nothing that looked like danger. Nothing that looked like anything at all. On the Wayfarer, the human crew noticed anyway. Lieutenant Harris leaned over his console, frowning. "That pattern again," he said quietly. Elias stepped closer. "Same as before?" "Almost," Harris replied, "but not random. It's thinning things." "Thinning?" Maya asked. Harris nodded. "Data loss without damage, like information is being erased, not destroyed." That made the room feel colder. Humans were very good at recognizing absence. It was something they learned early, living on a world where silence often meant danger. Elias straightened. "Log it. Don't flag it yet."
Maya looked at him.
"The Council should know." "They will," Elias said. "When we understand it better." Across the common spiral, life continued as usual. Trade flowed. Diplomacy followed familiar patterns. The small station incident faded into routine reports. But humans were changing their behavior. They ran more simulations. They reviewed ancient collapse records again and again. They compared myths, lost data, and unexplained failures across species. A pattern emerged. Not a single event. Not an enemy. Not a disaster. Something that caused systems to forget how to be systems. Archivist Sen Moore noticed human data requests increasing in frequency and depth.
They are looking for something specific, he observed during a council session.
What? Asked the speaker.
They do not know yet, Sen Moore replied, but they suspect it is already here. That worried the council more than certainty would have.
Permission was granted for humans to access deeper historical archives. Data that had not been reviewed in many cycles was opened. Humans worked through it methodically, not faster than others, just more stubbornly. They did not discard incomplete records. They kept contradictions. They compared failures that had no clear cause. One night cycle, Maya sat alone in the observation lounge, reviewing an old record from a vanished civilization. The final entry described a peaceful decline. Systems still worked. People still lived. Then one day, they stopped coordinating. No war. No famine. Just confusion.
Elias joined her silently. We've seen this before, Maya said. Yes, Elias replied.
On a smaller scale. She looked at him. Earth? He nodded. More than once. The difference was that humans had survived by learning to rebuild meaning, not just systems. The signal grew slightly stronger, still faint, still ignorable. Except the humans did not ignore it. They noticed subtle effects now. Navigation routes required more correction. Automated translation systems needed human oversight more often. Predictive models became less reliable. Nothing failed. Things just stopped making sense. The council began receiving reports of minor inconsistencies across multiple systems. Individually harmless. Together, comfortable. Coincidence, some said.
Early entropy, others argued. Archivist Sen Moore requested a closed session with the speaker.
The humans are preparing, he said, quietly. For what? For a problem they believe cannot be stopped, Sen Moore replied.
Only managed.
That idea was difficult for the council to accept. They had built civilizations on prevention and control. Humans built theirs on recovery. The Wayfarer sent another message.
We are detecting a pattern of gradual systemic degradation across multiple domains, Elias said calmly. We believe it will accelerate. How long? The speaker asked.
Elias hesitated. Hard to say. Could be cycles. Could be much sooner.
And your recommendation? The speaker pressed.
Start decentralizing, Elias said. Reduce dependency on single systems. Teach people how things work, not just how to use them. That suggestion was controversial. Efficiency was the foundation of council civilization. Humans were suggesting inefficiency by design. But evidence continued to accumulate. A long-range relay failed to route messages correctly, not because it broke, but because it no longer recognized priority. It treated emergency signals and routine traffic the same. Humans assisted again. This time, they did not fix the relay. They taught local engineers how to work around it.
Why not repair it?
Ambassador Luro asked during observation. Because it will happen again, Maya replied. Better to learn how to live with it. That answer unsettled many. The signal was finally given a name in human records. The Drift. Not because it moved, but because it caused everything else to drift apart slowly. Meaning from function, purpose from structure, systems from understanding. It was not intelligent. It was not hostile. It was a process, and processes were harder to fight than enemies. The Council struggled with the implications. There was no target.
No negotiation, no victory.
Only adaptation. Humans began sharing training programs, not advanced technology, but methods, how to recognize early failure, how to improvise when plans stopped working, how to trust people over systems. Some species resisted, others listened quietly. Those who listened saw improvement. Small communities became more resilient, local knowledge spread. People began questioning systems instead of assuming their perfection. That cultural shift was more disruptive than any invasion. The signal intensified again. Still subtle, still slow, but undeniable. Elias stood before the Council once more. "We don't have a solution," he said openly. "We never claimed we did." "Then why are you here?" demanded a delegate. "Because we've lived through collapse," Elias replied. "And we learned something important." The chamber grew silent. "Civilizations don't end when things break," he continued. "They end when people forget how to fix them." That statement spread quickly through the spiral. Archivists and more updated the records again. Humans do not conquer threats. They prepare for aftermaths. The Council authorized broader cooperation. Human advisors were embedded across multiple systems, not as leaders, but as helpers. They asked questions. They encouraged local solutions. They failed openly and learned publicly. That transparency was unsettling, but effective. The drift continued. Some systems degraded faster than expected. Others stabilized surprisingly well. The difference was not technology. It was people. On the Wayfarer. Harris looked up from his console. "The signal's still growing." Elias nodded. "It will." "Do you think they're ready?" Maya asked. Elias looked out at the stars. "No," she sighed. "Then why do this?" He smiled softly. "Because neither were we, and we're still here." Far beyond the Council's reach, entire regions of space were already quiet. Not dead, just disconnected. The drift did not care who noticed it first, but for the first time in galactic history, a species had looked at a slow, unstoppable problem and said not, "How do we win?" but "How do we survive together?" And that question began to change everything. The drift stopped being quiet, not suddenly, and not everywhere at once, but enough that even the most confident systems could no longer deny it. Across the common spiral, reports began to change in tone. What were once minor inconsistencies became persistent problems. Systems still worked, but they worked incorrectly. Navigation routes looped longer than necessary. Resource forecasts no longer matched reality. Automated decision cores began producing answers that were technically correct but practically useless. The galaxy was not breaking. It was forgetting how to function together. The Council met in near constant session. For the first time in its long history, there was no clear direction to follow. Old models failed. New predictions contradicted each other. Humans did not offer command. They offered presence. On dozens of worlds, human advisors sat with local engineers, planners, teachers, and leaders. They listened more than they spoke. They asked simple questions that no one had asked in a long time. What happens if this system stops? Who knows how this works without the interface? What do people do when instructions are unclear? At first, these questions were uncomfortable. Many species had built cultures where such uncertainty was considered weakness, but as failures continued, discomfort became necessity. On one agricultural world, Climate control systems began drifting out of alignment. Crops did not die, but yields dropped in strange patterns. Local experts argued over data until a human advisor suggested something unusual. "Can we talk to the farmers?" she asked. The idea seemed backward. Farmers followed system guidance. They did not design it, but when they were asked, the farmers explained small changes they had noticed. Soil felt different. Growth cycles shifted slightly. Things the system did not measure. Adjustments were made manually. The harvest stabilized. Similar stories spread. Not of humans fixing things, but of humans helping others remember how to think around failure. Archivist Sen Moore observed these developments with a mix of awe and unease. "They are changing us," he said quietly to the speaker. "Yes," the speaker replied.
"Without asking permission. They do not need to," Senmar said. "We invited them." The drift intensified again. This time, it affected communication. Translations became less precise. Words still converted correctly, but meaning blurred. Agreements required more clarification. Assumptions caused friction. Humans adapted quickly. They slowed conversations. They used simpler language. They repeated ideas in different ways. They encouraged face-to-face meetings when possible. Efficiency dropped. Understanding increased. That trade-off challenged everything the Council believed in. On the Wayfarer, tension was rising. Lieutenant Harris brought updated projections to Elias. "We're entering a new phase," he said. "The drift is accelerating." "How bad?" Maya asked. Harris hesitated. "Enough that some systems won't adapt in time." Elias closed his eyes briefly. He had hoped for more time. "Who's most at risk?" he asked. "Highly centralized civilizations," Harris replied. "The ones that optimized everything." Elias nodded. "Of course. Perfection left no room to bend. The Council demanded answers." "Can this be stopped?" asked Ambassador Leroux directly. Humans did not soften the truth. "No," Elias said. "Not with anything we understand." "Then what is the point of all this?" another delegate demanded. Elias met their gaze. "To make sure when things stop working the way you expect, you don't stop working as a society." That answer was not comforting. But it was honest. As failures spread, some species panicked. They attempted to lock down systems, isolate themselves, preserve what they had. Those systems degraded faster. Others followed human guidance. They decentralized authority, encouraged local problem-solving, accepted inefficiency. They adapted better. The Council began to split, not politically, but philosophically. One side wanted control. The other wanted resilience. Human advisors did not choose sides. They simply kept working where they were welcomed. One cycle, a major transit hub lost synchronization. Ships arrived early or late. Routes overlapped. Schedules collapsed. Commerce slowed across multiple systems. Instead of issuing new directives, a group of humans and local coordinators set up a temporary manual exchange system. It was slow, messy, dependent on communication and trust. It worked. Not perfectly, but enough. That became the pattern. The drift punished rigidity. It rewarded cooperation and adaptability. Archivist Sen Moore recorded a new observation. Human strength lies not in foresight, but in recovery speed. The drift reached the Council's own infrastructure soon after. Decision loops stalled. Advisory systems conflicted. The speaker faced a moment no predecessor had encountered. They had to choose without certainty. They asked for Elias. In a private chamber, the speaker spoke plainly. "We built this council
to last. Forever. Most do. And now? Now you decide what parts are worth keeping, Elias said. And what parts need to change. The speaker was silent for a long time. Your species accepts loss easily. Elias shook his head.
No. We just learned that pretending loss won't happen makes it worse.
That night cycle, the council voted to restructure itself. Authority was distributed. Local councils were empowered. Central systems became advisory instead of absolute. It was the most radical change in recorded history. Some called it surrender. Others called it survival. The drift did not slow, but the collapse everyone feared did not come either. Instead, the galaxy became uneven. Some regions struggled. Others stabilized. Communication required effort. Progress was slower. But people were involved again. On the Wayfarer, the crew felt the weight of it all. Maya sat with the Elias in the quiet hours. "Do you think we did enough?" she asked. Elias looked tired, older than when they arrived.
I don't know, he said honestly, but I know doing nothing would have been worse. She smiled sadly.
Very human answer. The drift continued to move, indifferent to hope or fear. But wherever humans had been, something lingered. Not technology, not authority, but a habit. The habit of asking, what do we do when this fails? And that habit spread. The drift never ended. That truth became clear long before the galaxy was ready to accept it. There was no final moment, no great silence, no line that could be crossed and labeled after. The drift was not an event. It was a condition, and slowly, painfully, the galaxy learned how to live with it. Years passed. Then cycles. Some records were lost. Some systems simplified themselves out of necessity. What remained was less impressive, less efficient, but more alive. The common spiral no longer ran on perfect coordination. It ran on people. The council still existed, but it was smaller now, quieter. It no longer tried to see everything at once. Decisions took longer. Debates were messier. But when mistakes happened, they were noticed quickly, corrected locally, and shared openly. That change mattered. Archivist Sen Moore, older now and slower in movement, reviewed the latest long-term data. Civilizations once predicted to collapse had stabilized, not because they defeated the drift, but because they stopped fighting reality. They adapted. Sen Moore added one final note to the archive. The drift does not destroy civilizations. It reveals what they were relying on.
On the Wayfarer, preparations were underway.
The ship looked even more patched than before. New sections had been added, old ones removed. It barely resembled its original design, and that made the crew proud. Elias Monroe stood on the bridge, hands resting on a worn console. He had aged. Humans did that quickly compared to most species. His hair was gray now, his movements slower, but his eyes were steady. Lieutenant Harris approached quietly. The council confirmed it, he said. They understand. Elias nodded. Good. They asked if we're leaving because things are stable now. Elias smiled faintly. No, we're leaving because they don't need us the same way anymore. Maya Chen joined them. They also asked if humans will come back. We never really leave, Elias said. We just move where we're needed. Across the spiral, human advisors began returning home. Not all at once, not loudly. Some stayed. Some had built lives elsewhere. That was fine. Humans were good at letting go. The drift continued its quiet work. Some technologies faded. Others were reinvented in simpler forms.
Education changed. Instead of teaching people what buttons to press, societies taught why things worked.
Children learned to question systems. Elders shared stories of failure, not as shame, but as lessons. The galaxy grew slower. It also grew wiser. On one distant world, a young engineer faced a system that no longer behaved as expected. Instead of panic, she gathered others. They tested, adjusted, talked, and tried again. It took longer, but it worked. That pattern repeated everywhere. The idea spread that perfection was fragile, but adaptability endured. The council held one last formal meeting with Elias before the Wayfarer departed. The speaker addressed him with respect earned, not granted. Your people changed the course of the spiral. Elias shook his head.
No, we reminded you of something you already knew. And what was that?
The speaker asked. That nothing stays whole forever, Elias replied. But that doesn't mean it has to end. The speaker inclined their head. Will humanity survive the drift? Elias considered the question carefully. We already are, he said. Same way we always have. The Wayfarer departed without ceremony. No crowds, no speeches. Just a quiet adjustment of trajectory and a slow drift toward open space. As it moved away, the listening array tracked its signal until it faded into background noise, indistinguishable from countless other small, stubborn lights. Years later, scholars would debate the human moment. Some would argue it was overestimated. Humans did not bring new power or knowledge. They did not save the galaxy. Others would argue it was misunderstood. Humans did not arrive to fix things. They arrived to stay functional while things broke. That distinction mattered. Archivist Sen Moore's final work focused on one recurring observation. When systems failed completely, species that relied on automation struggled the most. When humans failed, they gathered, talked, argued, rebuilt, and moved forward. Not efficiently, but together. The drift never chose sides. It never slowed. It never cared. But it met something unexpected. A galaxy that no longer assumed stability. One that expected change, planned for loss, and taught resilience as a core value. The drift became background again. Still present, still real. But no longer fatal. In a quiet corner of human space, children learn stories not of conquest, but of survival. Stories of broken tools that became better ones. Of mistakes that led to understanding. Of a time when the galaxy learned that strength was not about control, but about recovery. Elias Munro did not live to see the full results, but before he passed, he recorded a final message for the archives. We are not special, he said simply. We just got used to falling and standing back up. If that helps others, then good. That message spread far beyond human space. Long after names and borders changed, one idea remained. When the universe stops making sense, don't ask how to force it back. Ask how to keep going anyway. And that was the true human legacy. The drift continued. So did everyone else.